The icy wind cut through Marcus Carter's thin coat as he sat hunched on a park bench, watching the city move around him like he didn't exist. People in suits and polished shoes walked past without a second glance, their faces buried in their phones, their hands clutching overpriced coffee cups. He pulled his coat tighter around himself, rubbing his hands together for warmth, his stomach growling from yet another day without a proper meal. Just across the street, a sleek black car pulled up in front of a high-end cafe. A tall, well-dressed man stepped out, his phone pressed to his ear, his conversation sharp and businesslike. Marcus barely paid him any mind, just another rich guy living in a world he would never be a part of. The man reached into his coat pocket for his car keys, and something small slipped out, falling onto the sidewalk, a black leather wallet. Marcus blinked, watching as the man got into his luxury car without noticing what he had dropped. The car roared to life and sped off, leaving behind the lost item. For a long moment, Marcus just sat there, staring at the wallet on the pavement. No one else seemed to notice it. He looked around, his mind racing. He could already guess what was inside. Money, credit cards, maybe even something valuable enough to get him a warm bed for the night. His stomach twisted in hunger. He could walk away right now, and no one would ever know. With a sigh, he pushed himself to his feet and walked over, bending down to pick it up. The leather was smooth, expensive. He flipped it open, and his breath caught. There were crisp $100 bills stacked inside, platinum credit cards shining in the dim light, and an ID that read, Alexander Whitmore, CEO, Whitmore Enterprises. Marcus exhaled sharply. The man was a billionaire. He had enough money to lose this wallet 100 times over and never feel it. A voice in his head whispered, "Take it. Just take what you need. No one will miss it." But another voice, the one that still clung to the values his mother had taught him long ago, said something else. Do the right thing. Marcus clenched his jaw and shut the wallet. It ain't mine, he muttered under his breath. His hands were shaking, not from the cold but from the weight of the decision. He wasn't a thief. He never had been. Flipping through the wallet, he found a business card with an address on it. Whitmore Enterprises. It wasn't far from here. With one last look at the cash inside, Marcus shoved the wallet into his pocket, squared his shoulders, and started walking. Marcus stood at the base of Whitmore Enterprises, his eyes traveling up the gleaming glass facade that seemed to stretch endlessly into the sky. The wind whipped against his face as he took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. He wasn't used to places like this, places where men in $1,000 suits walked with purpose, where polished floors reflected a world that had long since forgotten people like him. Clutching the wallet tightly in his hand, he stepped forward and pushed through the heavy glass doors. Inside, the lobby was massive, a masterpiece of marble and steel, filled with the quiet hum of business. Executives bustled past in tailored suits, their leather shoes clicking sharply against the floor. A receptionist, a woman with perfect blonde hair and an air of practiced disinterest, glanced up from her computer as Marcus approached. Her eyes immediately narrowed. "Sir," she said, her voice clipped, "we don't allow panhandling here." Marcus inhaled sharply, swallowing the immediate sting of her words. He had been judged before. He had been dismissed before. But this time, he had a reason to be here. "I'm not panhandling," he said evenly. "I found this outside. It belongs to Mr. Whitmore." He held up the wallet, hoping she would at least take a second to look. The receptionist barely spared it a glance before scoffing. "Right. And you expect me to believe you didn't take anything?" Marcus gritted his teeth. He should have expected this. He knew what they saw when they looked at him. His worn-out coat, his unshaven face, the tired shadows beneath his eyes. They didn't see a man. They saw a problem. Before he could reply, 2 uniformed security guards stepped forward, their expressions hard. One of them, a stocky man with a name tag that read Henderson, crossed his arms over his chest. "Sir, we need you to leave," he said, his tone brokering no argument. Marcus exhaled slowly. "I'm not here to cause trouble. Just give this back to Mr. Whitmore." The second guard, a tall, lean man with cold blue eyes, took a step closer. "Hand it over to us, and we'll make sure it gets to him." Marcus hesitated. Something about their dismissive attitude made his gut churn. If he handed over the wallet now, would they even return it? Or would they pocket the cash and pretend he never walked in? "No offense," Marcus said, his voice steady, "but I'd rather return it myself." That was the wrong thing to say. The guards stepped closer, their presence now imposing. "We're not asking," Henderson said, his tone sharp. "You need to leave. Now." Marcus clenched his jaw, his fingers tightening around the wallet. He had done the right thing. He had walked all this way, and yet, here he was, being treated like a criminal for simply trying to return something that wasn't his. Just as he took a step back, resigned to leaving, a deep voice cut through the air. "What's going on here?" The entire room seemed to freeze. The elevator doors at the far end of the lobby had just opened, and stepping out with an air of quiet authority was a tall, powerful-looking man in a tailored navy suit. Alexander Whitmore. Marcus recognized him instantly from the ID in the wallet. Sharp features, salt and pepper hair slicked back with precision, and the unmistakable presence of a man who controlled everything around him. The moment Whitmore's eyes landed on the wallet in Marcus's hand, his entire expression changed. The receptionist immediately straightened, plastering on a professional smile. The guard stepped back, suddenly uncertain. Whitmore's piercing gaze flickered between Marcus and the security team. "Someone want to explain what's happening here?" he asked, his voice calm, but with an edge that demanded immediate answers. The receptionist was the first to speak, her voice dripping with practiced politeness. "This gentleman was just leaving, sir." Marcus met Whitmore's gaze, tired but unwavering. Without hesitation, he extended the wallet. "This is yours," he said simply. Whitmore didn't reach for it immediately. Instead, he studied Marcus carefully, his expression unreadable. Then, without breaking eye contact, he took the wallet and flipped it open. A quick scan of the contents told him everything he needed to know. Everything was still there. His grip tightened around the leather for a moment before he looked back up. "You walked all the way here to return this?" he asked, his tone quieter now. Marcus nodded. Seemed like the right thing to do. Whitmore was silent for a moment. The receptionist and security guards stood frozen, waiting for the billionaire's reaction. Finally, Whitmore let out a quiet chuckle, shaking his head slightly. "And yet they tried to throw you out for it." The receptionist's face drained of color. The security guard stiffened. Whitmore's expression darkened as he turned his attention toward them. "Is that how we treat people in this building?" he asked coldly. Henderson stammered. "Sir, we—" Whitmore held up a hand, silencing him. His gaze returned to Marcus. "What's your name?" he asked. "Marcus Carter." Whitmore nodded slowly. "Tell me, Mr. Carter, do you have anywhere to be right now?" Marcus frowned slightly. "No." A small smirk tugged at the billionaire's lips. "Good, because I'd like you to come with me." The receptionist and security guards looked stunned. The entire dynamic of the room had just shifted. Marcus, still unsure of what was happening, hesitated. "Why?" Whitmore's smirk widened. "Because I have a feeling your honesty is about to take you somewhere you never expected." Marcus shifted his weight slightly, adjusting his tattered coat. He could feel the weight of the entire lobby's attention on him. The receptionist, the security guards, the wealthy businessmen passing by. They were all watching. But Alexander Whitmore's gaze was different. It wasn't dismissive. It wasn't filled with the quiet contempt Marcus was used to. It was curious. Marcus took a deep breath. "My story," he repeated, as if he hadn't heard those words in years. He rubbed his hands together, trying to warm them against the chill that had settled into his bones long ago. Ain't much to tell. Whitmore didn't break eye contact. Try me. For a moment, Marcus considered brushing it off, just handing over the wallet and walking away. But something about Whitmore's expression made him pause. It wasn't pity. It wasn't judgment. It was genuine interest. Marcus exhaled slowly. I used to have a life, a real life, a job, a family, a home. His fingers tightened slightly around the frayed hem of his coat. Then one bad break turned into another. Lost my job when the company shut down. My wife, she tried to hold on, but when you're struggling to eat every day, love doesn't always survive that kind of pressure. His throat tightened, but he forced himself to continue. Then I lost my apartment. And just like that, I was out here. He gestured vaguely to the world outside the towering glass skyscraper. Whitmore listened in silence, his expression unreadable. Marcus let out a dry chuckle. Funny thing is, people don't see you once you hit the streets. You stop existing. But I didn't forget who I was, and I wasn't about to let a damn wallet change that. He looked Whitmore in the eye. That's why I didn't take your money. A long silence stretched between them. Whitmore studied him for a moment, then glanced at the $100 bill still in his hand. He folded it neatly and slipped it back into his wallet. Then, without a word, he pulled out a sleek black business card and handed it to Marcus instead. Marcus hesitated before taking it, his fingers brushing against the smooth, expensive cardstock. He read the embossed letters. Alexander Whitmore, CEO, Whitmore Enterprises. He frowned. What's this for? Whitmore smirked slightly. Consider it an invitation. Marcus raised an eyebrow. To what? Whitmore's smirk widened. A second chance. Before Marcus could respond, Whitmore turned to the stunned receptionist and security guards. His tone was calm, but his words carried unmistakable authority. I want Mr. Carter brought to my home tomorrow morning. Have a car pick him up. Make sure he's treated with the same respect you'd show any of my business partners. The receptionist's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The security guards shifted awkwardly. Marcus blinked, his mind struggling to catch up. Wait, what? Whitmore slipped his wallet back into his coat pocket. You've proven your character, Marcus. I want to see what else you're capable of. Marcus let out a disbelieving laugh. Man, you don't even know me. Whitmore's eyes gleamed. I know enough. Marcus glanced down at the business card in his hand, then back up at the billionaire. A billionaire who, against all logic, was offering him something he hadn't had in a long time. A chance. Marcus swallowed hard, his pride warring with his instincts. And if I say no? Whitmore shrugged. Then you walk out of here the same way you came in. No strings attached. Marcus glanced around the room, at the people who had judged him the moment he walked in. The same people who now looked at him like they weren't sure what to think anymore. He looked back at Whitmore, then at the business card again. A second chance. He licked his lips, nodded once, and tucked the card into his pocket. All right, he said quietly. Guess I'll see you tomorrow. Whitmore smiled, a knowing gleam in his eyes. Looking forward to it. Marcus sat in the back of the luxurious Rolls-Royce, his fingers gripping the smooth leather of the seat. He couldn't wrap his head around what was happening. Just yesterday, he had been invisible to the world, another nameless face on the street. Now, he was being chauffeured through the wealthiest part of the city like a man of importance. As the car glided through the towering iron gates, Marcus's breath hitched. The estate before him was something out of a dream. Endless green lawns, marble fountains, and a mansion so grand it looked like it belonged to royalty. He had never seen wealth like this up close. The driver pulled up to the circular driveway and stepped out to open Marcus's door. "Mr. Whitmore is expecting you," he said with a polite nod. Marcus hesitated for a moment before stepping onto the pristine pavement. His tattered shoes felt out of place against the polished stone. He adjusted his jacket, suddenly aware of how out of place he looked. But before doubt could creep in, the massive front doors opened. Alexander Whitmore stood there, dressed in a crisp navy suit, his usual air of authority softened by the genuine smile on his face. "Marcus," he greeted, extending his hand. Marcus blinked in surprise before shaking it. The handshake was firm, respectful, one between equals, not a wealthy businessman and a homeless man. "You didn't have to do all this," Marcus said, his voice cautious but grateful. Whitmore chuckled. "I disagree. You didn't just return my wallet, Marcus. You proved something rare: integrity. And in my world, integrity is more valuable than money." Marcus followed him inside, trying to take in the opulence of the mansion. Everything gleamed: gold accents, crystal chandeliers, grand staircases leading to places he could only imagine. They entered a dining hall where a lavish breakfast was set. Platters of fresh fruit, steaming coffee, eggs, bacon, food that looked like it belonged in a five-star hotel. Marcus hesitated, but Whitmore gestured for him to sit. "Eat," Whitmore encouraged. "We'll talk while you do." Marcus took a bite of toast, still unsure if this was real. As he ate, he told his story: how he had once been a skilled carpenter, working on high-end homes and commercial buildings, how an injury had sidelined him, medical bills piling up faster than he could pay, how one lost paycheck turned into eviction, and before he knew it, he was on the streets. Whitmore listened intently, never interrupting. When Marcus finished, there was a long pause. Then Whitmore leaned forward. "I believe in rewarding good people," he said, "and I have an offer for you." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "An offer?" Whitmore nodded. "Not charity, a real job. My company has multiple properties under renovation. We need someone skilled, someone with an eye for craftsmanship. How would you like to get back to doing what you love?" Marcus felt his throat tighten. He had dreamed of this moment but never thought it would come. "You serious?" Whitmore grinned. "Dead serious. You start Monday if you're interested." Marcus exhaled, his hands gripping the edge of the table as he tried to process everything. A job, a real chance to rebuild his life. He looked Whitmore in the eye, seeing nothing but sincerity. "I'd love that," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Whitmore clapped him on the back. "Welcome aboard, Marcus." Marcus stepped onto the polished floors of Whitmore Enterprises, but this time, he wasn't just a nameless man being escorted out. He wore a tailored suit, his hair neatly trimmed, and his posture filled with the confidence of a man who had been given a second chance. The same receptionist who had dismissed him before now looked at him with wide eyes, her face turning pale as she realized who he was. "Mr. Carter," she stammered, standing up quickly. I didn't recognize you." Marcus gave her a small smile, but there was no malice in his eyes. "Funny how things change, huh?" he said, his voice calm. The security guards exchanged glances, equally shocked. Just a few days ago, they had been ready to throw him out, assuming he was a nuisance. Now, he was walking through the halls with the company's owner. Alexander Whitmore gathered his employees in the main hall for a company-wide meeting. With his usual commanding presence, he addressed the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying through the space. "A few days ago, a man walked into this building with nothing but honesty. Many of you judged him based on how he looked. You saw his torn clothes, his rough exterior, and assumed he had nothing to offer." The employees shifted uncomfortably, their eyes flickering toward Marcus. "But let me tell you something," Whitmore continued, glancing at Marcus with a proud smile. "This man is one of the most skilled craftsmen I've ever met, and as of today, he is officially a part of Whitmore Enterprises. A murmur spread through the crowd. The very man they had dismissed was now one of them. "From now on," Whitmore declared, "this company will judge people by their character, not their appearance. Because talent, integrity, and hard work don't wear designer suits, they come from within." The room erupted in applause. Some clapped out of genuine respect, others out of sheer disbelief. The receptionist lowered her head, shame washing over her. The security guards who had once looked down on Marcus now nodded at him with newfound respect. Marcus stood tall, taking it all in. He had walked into this building with nothing but his honesty, and now he was leaving as a man with dignity, purpose, and a future. Because sometimes doing the right thing opens doors you never thought possible. Months later, Marcus stood outside a brand new community center, its modern design standing in stark contrast to the rundown streets he once called home. A bright sign above the entrance read, "Carter Community Center, a second chance for all." The center was a beacon of hope, a place where the homeless and struggling could learn trades, find shelter, and rebuild their lives, just as Marcus had. Alexander Whitmore stood beside him, holding out a set of gleaming keys. "You're not just an employee anymore, Marcus. You're running this place." Marcus stared at the keys in disbelief, his fingers trembling as he took them. I don't know what to say." Whitmore gave him a knowing smile. "Then don't say anything. Just promise me one thing." Marcus met his gaze, his chest tightening with emotion. "Anything." Whitmore clapped a firm hand on his shoulder. "When you see someone in need, pass it on." Marcus swallowed hard, his throat thick with gratitude. He looked at the building before him, at the people waiting inside for their chance at a new life. Just months ago, he had been one of them, overlooked, discarded, left to struggle. Now he was standing on the other side, ready to help those who had been in his shoes. He turned back to Whitmore, a wide grin spreading across his face. "I will." As the doors to the community center swung open, people filed in. Young men eager to learn a trade, single mothers looking for support, and lost souls searching for a fresh start. And standing at the entrance, ready to greet them, was Marcus Carter, the man who had once been homeless, now a leader, a mentor, and a symbol of what integrity could build. He had walked into Whitmore's office with nothing but honesty. Now, he was leaving with a future. Because one act of kindness had changed his life forever.